Do you think that the team name like matters?
Um, yes, I do. I think I mean, in the day to day, no. I think everybody just does their stuff. Totally
Yeah.
get that. But I think there's an energy to it, I think, where the team name can impact it. If you were like Team Dirtbag versus Team Awesome, let's say, eventually that's going to sort of filter in and the name is going to impact things. Don't you think?
Yeah, so I've done a couple renames, which
Okay.
is always fun to go through. The one that sticks out the most to me is I was at a place and we were responsible for the team I originally showed up on was the cart through checkout functionality on the website. And then we segmented that and we had a cart team and a checkout team. So for a while, we are just cart for a long time. And then we're like, you know what? Like, we need a refresh. Like, all these other teams that have come in, like, they have cool names, they do all stuff. Like, we should do something fun. And so we came up with Thunder Cart was our team name, and the Thundercat logo was our logo. So we
Awesome.
changed. So Thundercart, and we went into all the places in Confluence and Jira, and we swapped out the Thundercart logo and or the Thundercat logo and changed everything to Thundercart.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It was fun. Like, everybody really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great.
The renames, I mean, the renames are always interesting too, depending on like the team dynamics. I've witnessed one where it was like just they were let's see, they were I don't remember like why they were named what they were named, but there's the scope of what they were going to be taken care of was changing. And so they're like they're going to rename, and they had just like, I mean, it was all like cosmic stuff. And their initial name was kind of weird, and it didn't really like tell anybody what they did, so you wouldn't necessarily know. And then they changed it to like slightly different than what
Okay.
they had done, like very similar to your spam, but they didn't do like a funny play thing. It was like subtract or add a word or something like that.
Okay.
And they
Huh.
did like real quick, like, let's get this nailed in like 3 days or something like that. Like
Okay.
right now, it'd stand up one day, they're like, let's do it. All right, voting in what's the tool they use? Slack. Voting was in Slack.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a couple of options to name the team and a couple where it's like, this is just the, here's their team name.
Yeah.
Here's what it is. Um, and I think in some scenarios, it really depends on the team dynamic whether the name might have an impact or not, or the extent to which its impact it will have an impact.
Yeah.
Because some teams are like, yeah, let's have a great team name. Let's figure this out. Yeah, let's do that. And other teams or other groups of people, I'll just say that, they're like, I don't care what the team name is. It's like, okay, it's not gonna matter.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. The current place, it was a boring name just because I didn't know. Like, I was out there before the rest of the team came, and so I set up some of the tools, but I didn't know how whimsical people were gonna be. Which, thank good, I didn't like go full whimsical, because that is not the place to be. Like, those people are somewhat dry.
Right.
But I took the shield logo and I made that the logo of all of our stuff and all of our tools.
Uh,
And then I try to do like, I do have fun themes, so I like to use the different protocols within the Marvel universe for like meeting names. if we do a series of meetings, the place that we were at together, I did all the Marvel movies, and it's just really funny. So like, just I got bored of this like weekly meeting that we would have, and I renamed it to Avengers. I was thinking the movie, but like everybody else kind of, I didn't know that one of the people on that team was super into Marvel, and they just kind of like, everybody kind of globbed onto it, and they're like, yeah, this is the Avengers team now, and that's like what they called themselves. Like, but they were all in different areas. It was just like when they would meet like once a week or whatever, they're like, yeah, the Avengers meeting. That's what they referred to it as.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, this place we did different sprint names, and they were Star Wars movies because we weren't going to be out there forever.
Ah.
And now that now that it's going to be transitioned to the full timers, they have decided to start with Harry Potter, which I think is hilarious and amazing that they're like, yeah. And I talked to the lady, she was like, well, she's like, I wanted to do Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, but we already did that. Like, we went through all the movies and a lot of the intellectual property already.
Sweet. Question for you. Are you a Ted Lasso fan?
No, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. Okay. This got me thinking about this, and so I wanna ask you a question about it. So I have not watched it. I've heard a lot about it. You know, our colleague Nick is a huge fan of it. He's been touting it for a year at least. I finally got around to A, getting Apple Plus, and then B, just like, oh, all right, I'll watch this episode.
Yeah.
Watch the first episode. Okay. It's awesome. Okay, first of all. And I totally admit I have been behind the power curve, but I have burned through 2 seasons worth of episodes, and I'm now caught up, and I only started watching yesterday. Okay, not yesterday, but a few weeks ago. Okay.
Isn't it like we are just living in the future? Binge watching TV.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. But this is the backdrop for my question for you. Because it's not just Ted Lasso. It could be anything where you're any celebrity, whether it's TV, movies, music. This is the theory or the concept here is never meet your heroes, right? So I see this and I'm like, oh, this is very interesting, but I'm very resistant to going out there and seeing who any of the actors, actresses, etc. are. But eventually, my curiosity gets the best of me, and I want to go see what they are like on a talk show or an interview or whatever. And I'm every time I'm like queuing up something to watch it, I'm like, I pray to God this person is not an asshat, because it's going to ruin my view of the entire show. Does that resonate with you, that whole thing? Do you research the people or no?
No. I do. I don't like to watch like trailers or anything of movies that like I want to see, especially like the Marvel stuff. So I know what the comics are. I know a lot of the stories. But I like to see how they'll integrate all of it, how they'll make it work. But I don't like to watch the trailers even.
Sure, but I'm talking about like who the people are in real life.
No, I don't know that there is anything that I'm like, I'm not going to watch because I don't like that person type deal. Because it's tough, right? So like you think about like when Joaquin Phoenix went on
Letterman and was really weird, but that was totally staged.
Exactly. It was for the movie. Like, so it's kind of tough, with for the talk show specifically.
Absolutely. It's tough to know, like, who am I really seeing here? But I hope that they're likable. Maybe, I guess, is my my thing. But whenever I this got me thinking about this series, but I know it's true with music artists for me. Like there have been a couple of music artists who have been recently, and we can talk about half dozen of them in the last couple of years that have been exposed as asshats or misogynists or whatever, where it's like, I own some of their music and I'm like, I don't even know if I can listen to it anymore. I don't know. Is that just me?
No, I think that's fair. It's like when anybody does something like that, right? Like you just think about any of the Kevin Spacey thing. Like, dude, so like he's a great actor. He's really good in the show and all that stuff. Then that all comes out. And then he makes this super weird video where he's being a great actor, but it's like tone deaf almost about everything that's going on. So like, no, I don't think it's tough. Louis C.K. was one. Like, I really like his stuff and I like the way that he writes his jokes and delivers them. And, then the stuff came out with him and it's like, well, weird. Just like straight up weird, but also like, you kind of expected it from him a little bit because his jokes were so. You're like, if that's not far off from what he talks about.
Right.
So there is one. So Joe Rogan. So I think I still am a Joe Rogan fan. I like the commentating that he does for MMA or for UFC, and like him in Fear Factor, liked him in News Radio, right? The classics. And then his podcast was pretty good, probably up until the Milo episode. Then it didn't really get real weird real fast till he went over to Spotify, I don't think. But I saw him, so I watch his podcast when he has people or topics that are interesting to me. So like, most of the MMA ones, I really like watching those and listening to the MMA fighters. He used to have like a bunch of scientists on, like when Neil deGrasse Tyson's on, that's always fun. When he has music people on, that's always fun too. I really don't care about anything medical that he talks about anymore, or even it's kind of somewhat fitness related, but like my favorite is when like
he's not a doctor, but he plays one on his podcast.
Right. But I really like the thing that like really got me into his stuff was when him and Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, it's just like all their friends hanging out and chatting and being goofy and stuff. But I saw, so he filled in for Bert recently on the Two Bears One Cave, which is Tom and Bert's podcast. And it was really weird because the first probably 15 or 20 minutes, he was different. I'm like, okay, so maybe this is weird because it's not his podcast, like because he's a guest on the podcast. But then they kind of hit on like some topics that he was like jazzed about or something, and I'm like, okay, now he's coming back out. I'm like, but this is super weird. Just the way he was sitting, everything. I'm like, this is odd. Maybe he's uncomfortable. I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't research actors.
Okay. So in conclusion, you are better able to disassociate the entertainment from the person.
I think so. I mean, also it's like issues. It seems like the issues with people come up later after good works are done. You know what I mean? Like after good products are produced. Then there are problems afterwards, and there aren't necessarily. It does go away. There is one, so I'll give you one. TJ Dillashaw, and there's actually a couple. So basically, athletes that participate in UFC that pop for PEDs, John Jones is one of them. He's repeatedly popped, and it's like, they just have at some point it's like they have all the excuses. The UFC, clearly he makes money for him, so they're putting money into getting him back, and it's like at some point it's like he's just using them. The problem, like, everyone's like, no, he's not using them, and what they don't understand, maybe, I don't know, people will still pay money to watch him whether or not he's using them. They don't care. Like, that's how big of a draw he is. It's like, just be honest and be like, yeah, he was using them. There's no way that he's been at the top like that, being kind of the person that he is, using the stuff that he's used and not still doing it. Like, I don't know. TJ Dillashaw was one too, where it's like he was pretty good, and then he popped. And it's like he had teammates that had been telling everybody that he was doing it, and so he gets suspended for 2 years, and then I'm like, no, I don't care about him anymore. Not excited for his fights. Like, nope. Not at all. He was maybe fun to watch before, but yeah, not going forward. So with like produced works and products is different, because it's like it's already out there, you've already consumed it, you already like it or you don't, and then they do something and it's like, well, that doesn't take away from the experience you had with the product the first time. Maybe things going forward
could be, but it taints me every time I hear a song by Mark Kozlak or Ryan Adams, not Brian, Ryan. I'm like, there's sort of this pall that gets cast over it for me. But maybe I'm the outlier. Maybe I'm not the norm. Maybe other people don't care. They're like, as you said, hey, the product's already out there. I'm fine with it. It's a struggle for me.
Yeah. And I think it can be like weird. It's like Chick-fil-A. Like, I like Chick-fil-A, but the homophobia and the oppressive religion is a little stale. You know what I mean? Like, they make really good sandwiches and really good chicken, but
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that. Like, the way that, and not really like, I mean, there are some that come to mind. So another one like Roseanne. I don't know what you're feeling. How do you feel about Roseanne?
I never really watched or paid attention to her before.
Yeah. Okay.
So with what has happened, it was tough to care less, but I do. Does that answer it?
Yeah. I feel like, me personally, I feel like she got caught in that era of cancel, because it was like these men were doing these things, these really bad things, and they weren't being punished enough, right? But they would kind of be slapped on the wrist because they would cut their production, but all the other people that worked with them would also get penalized because of what this one person did, right? So then Roseanne happens, and she's a comic. She's always been edgy. She's always pushed the envelope. Like, she's always been out there. And then they cut her from the show and continue on, which is a great idea. But for her, I think she was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and she's like, what? He's like, what happened? She's like, I was drinking and I took some Ambien, and I don't even remember writing that.
Oh, wow.
Yep, that'll happen.
Huh. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was drinking one time and I took a gummy, and I have very little memory of what happened that night. So I get it. Not to do a callback to an episode from 2 years ago, but
that was earlier this year. I don't think that was 2 years ago.
Was it a year ago? I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
It's tough to keep track with all of the fantastic episodes that keep dropping week in and week out. It's just content after content.
So, like, are you a Dwayne the Rock Johnson fan?
I find him entertaining. Am I a fan? Like if I see, oh, there's a new movie coming out with Dwayne the Rock Johnson, do I go, I gotta go see that? No. Do I enjoy him in a number of films he's been in? Yes, I think he has a certain amount of charisma. Yep.
And would it, like, so if it came out that he was using PEDs, like, would his image be tainted? No.
I could care less.
You'd probably be like, that tracks.
Yeah, I'd be like, whatever. But he's not using PEDs to gain some competitive advantage over somebody.
Right.
He's an actor.
Right.
So what the hell do I care?
Yeah, it's kind of like, to me, like the stories on TikTok. Like, I don't know if they're real or not. A lot of them are probably fake. I don't really care. I was kind of entertained either way. And I've also learned, like, or realized recently that real life is way more insane than probably any story people could come up with.
Very true. Very true. It's just a question of whether people want to disclose the shit show that's going on in our individual lives.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own pile of crap. And maybe it would help if people talked about it more. I don't know. I also feel like we could get into a mode where everyone's sharing some pile of crap and not all of it is real.
Yeah.
So then you run into that. Or people exaggerate what it is because they want the attention that is derived from sharing a pile of crap.
Yeah. You haven't used that phrase for a while. It's been like a year, I think.
What phrase is that?
Pile of crap.
Oh.
I feel like you were saying that a lot, you know, maybe a year ago.
Probably. Probably. It is a phrase I use with my sister. We talk about that. Like, everybody's got their own pile of, but the word starts with an S and rhymes with, or ends with a T. Anyway, but I've dumbed it down. I've made it family friendly. Pile of crap. Everybody's got their own pile.
I don't know. I don't know if I would mark these explicit. I think I do sometimes, but yeah, this isn't family friendly. It's not for little kids.
No.
It's like
no,
18 plus, pals.
Little kids aren't going to listen to this and go, well, that was super exciting. Most adults are going to listen to this and go, that was not super exciting.
I'm excited for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks out when Beth is back on. Super excited to discuss the team thing with you guys.
We are not going to discuss teams. We're going to talk about something else. There is no team discussion. There's no persona discussion. There is no discussion about Albany, Minnesota. There's none of that. It's gonna be a fresh topic.
Beth doesn't go to Albany though.
No, she does not. But we're gonna leave it up to her to drive the thing, and you and I are just gonna sit back and ask questions. Try to draw her in rather than force her into the background as she tries to referee you and I getting into virtual fisticuffs about something.
All right, so then here's the thing. Here's where I've landed on the team.
Do you know fisticuffs, by the way?
I
don't know if you know that, because
Yeah.
people who are not unflappable can get into fisticuffs.
Yes, I learned fisticuffs from Looney Tunes because they use that word.
The university instructor of the world.
Yeah.
Looney Tunes.
Yep.
Okay.
So it is annoying to me that people talk so much about the team, using the team, like using those words, and a lot of what they do, like saying the things out loud about the team, I think is what bothers me. Being on teams is fun. Being a part of teams, building teams, that's all fun, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. So like I do like teams, but I think that just saying the things out loud is what bothers me.
Oh, sure. Like, and I totally agree with you. Like, just because you say it doesn't make it. It doesn't make a team. Like, the team actually has to exhibit symptoms and behaviors that make it a team. Totally get that, because I've been on plenty of teams that are just a collection of individuals.
Yeah, I had a friend that went. They went and did their ACSM, and they said that the instructor pointed that out specifically and said, when you're just getting started, you're just a collection of people. You're not actually a team yet, and that there's like this, it's the, the phases of team building. That's all that it is.
Yeah. Although even like, okay, there's the whole storming, norming, forming thing, which I think is valid. However, expecting that to happen, or like being able to say, "Oh, we're in this phase," doesn't mean you're in that phase and the next one is this. It means you're just in that phase.
Yep.
You may or may not ever get out of that. And it's up to the people that are on the team. Not like and it's not a conscious decision, it's behavioral.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's no forcing it or coaching it. It either happens or it doesn't.
Yes.
And if it happens, my feeling is hold on to that, because it's very rare.
Yeah. It's like
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just get like, it's important to know those things, and you can do that as a team member, but especially it's very useful as like a team builder to be able to recognize what stage they're in, so you know like what your role is, you know what you're supposed to be doing, you know what everybody else is going to do. But yeah, to your point, it's like, I mean, the four main, the last two are norming and performing are the main two, right? And I like to stick with kind of the basics, I suppose. Norming is where most teams end up. Performing, it's rare for teams to get to that, just flat out. And if you go to any kind of credible institution where you learn about this, they explain that to you.
Yeah.
It's like not every team makes it to performing.
Yeah. Speaking of tight-knit teams that are performing, Jess, who is absent from our team here tonight, texted me back and said she is in the middle of Christmas with her boyfriend and boyfriend's family. She's having a great time. If she makes it, great. If not, it's because she's having a great time. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. We are near the holidays, by the way. And by the way, we've made it now 40 minutes or so and haven't even talked about how bloody cold it is.
Yeah, right. So I had a friend. I think I was married, but we lived up here, so we were both up here at the time, and his girlfriend at the time lived in Texas. And it was really funny because one of the meteorologists on one of the news stations, because we live it every year, like we've seen the thermometer hit 40 and 50 below. We've seen wind chills of 60 and 70 below. Like, that's not uncommon. It's usually a yearly occurrence. Sometimes we have snaps where we're sub-zero for a week or two. It's usually not this cold this early. It's usually around February. Anyway, so we were having a cold snap, and the meteorologist was like, this is the time when your out of state family members are going to call you And so he and I we're like, let's hang out. And we went to Dairy Queen. It was like 20 below outside. And we go to Dairy Queen and his girlfriend calls him and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm at Dairy Queen. 20 below. Let's go get some ice cream or soft serve, whatever.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, my wife's from Southern California. Most of her family's from there. They don't necessarily live there now, but yeah, when it would hit, like I remember one time her dad called, it was 30 below, and they called to check up on us. And they're like, he's like, how cold is it? I'm like, it's 30 below right now. And he's like, oh man, he's like, I don't know. He's like, it's down to 30 here and we don't know what we're gonna do. I'm like, it's all relative. Like,
yes, it is. It's what you're used to.
Went to school with a bunch of people from around the country, and there was this one lady she was also from California, and she was complaining. It was like 30 degrees, 20 degrees. The place that we weren't here, we were in Idaho. And she was complaining about how cold it was at the beginning of the winter. And I told her, I go, don't worry. I'm like, you'll think this is warm at the end of winter. And sure enough, it starts warming up in springtime, and it was like 30 degrees outside. She's like, man, it's so warm out.
Yes. Yeah. 30, 40 degrees in spring is very different than 30, 40 degrees in fall.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. It's because that's the point where, 50 degrees is where you like really break out the shorts potentially, but like 30 and 40, you're like, I could probably wear shorts.
There was a guy, I had to go to the grocery store last weekend. It was 20 degrees. There was a guy, as I pulled into the parking lot, guy getting in his car because he had come out of the grocery store. He was wearing shorts, 20 degrees. I'm like, huh. I get it that some people do that. Could I do that? No.
I watched a video of a Canadian lady, and she's like, I'm going to help you get ready for wintertime. And she said there's two kinds of Canadians, cold Canadians and warm Canadians. And she goes, if you're not a cold Canadian, get out of here. This isn't for you. And I'm like, it's the same thing. It's like they're just warm all the time, and it's like 20 degrees or 20 below, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to put on like, it was funny. I did go to the store. I think it was snowing. So like when the storm had started, and it wasn't super cold. We were talking single digits, but I thought it was really funny because it was like no hats, no gloves, or hat and like a sweatshirt. Like it was like minimal layers. Not a lot of people wearing parkas or anything. Sure. I'm like, yep. I'm like, that's how we roll up here.
Yeah.
But then we do the thing where we get, when I get in the car, if it's cold like this, there's extra gear in my car in case I get stuck and I gotta walk or something like that. Like you always gotta make sure.
Yeah, two of my brothers who moved south years ago. One's in Texas and one had moved to Phoenix. He's now in Boston, so I think he's probably acclimated now. But when they were living there, they'd come and visit here, right? During the summer, maybe late summer or whatever. And, some evenings it could get down to like 65, 70, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, I got to put jeans on. I'm like, what? So, to your point, it's all relative. It's just what you're used to.
Yeah, my uncle, he used to like to point out, he's like, when it's 20 below outside and you walk from your house to your car or from your warm car to the office or vice versa, he goes, it's like almost 100-degree swing between the environment you're in and the environment you get out to and walk through.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Yeah.
It's a fun way to look at it for sure.
Yep.
I would much rather be cold than hot though, like 100%, because I feel like you can always put stuff on. You can always put more things on, but you can't
take more things off.
You can only get to a certain point. Like
true.
And I feel like the acclimating to the heat is way worse than acclimating to the cold. like if we didn't have AC, we wouldn't be living a lot of places.
If we didn't have heat, we wouldn't be living in a lot of places.
Yeah, but we can like cut down trees and stuff. Like we can get heat pretty easily.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
AC is like complicated. Like, did you call a fridge an ice box?
No.
Okay, so but you had heard ice box before, right? Did
Oh,
your parents?
sure.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
parents referred to it as an ice box, right?
Probably. I'd have to ask.
Okay.
I'd have to ask my mom about that.
So my dad, he called it an ice box. I think my mom did too. So we called it an ice box growing up. And then he told us why he called it an ice box. I can't remember if he said it was him because he was born in the 50s. So I can't imagine that they only had an ice box back then, but they did live in a farmhouse in the city back then. And it's because to keep things cool, you would get a big chunk of ice that someone would deliver and put it in a box outside. It's the ice box.
Really? Huh.
Before refrigeration. So I don't know if that's like something he picked up from his parents, or if that's something that he lived through. I feel like he said it was something that he lived through, but I'm not 100% on that.